Okay, so we've decided that the first feature that we're going to build, and therefore the first test that we're going to write, is going to be about viewing a basic concert listing. So we have a little HTML mockup here that kind of shows what we're aiming for. We just want this very basic kind of concert card that tells us who's playing, when the concert is, how much it costs, the venue name and address, and then some additional information where we're saying, at this point, if you want tickets, call this number and we'll figure out how to sell them to you. So our very first step is going to be to scaffold out a brand new Laravel application. So we're going to head over to the terminal here and we're going to run Laravel new ticket beast. And now that that's done, we're going to pull it up in our editor and start working on our very first test. So if we open up our tests directory, you can see by default Laravel gives us this example test case, as well as a base test case that we can extend to make sure that our test cases have the ability to interact with the Laravel application. So the first test that we're going to write is like an outside-in acceptance level test, and I like to keep those in a features directory in my tests folder. So we'll create a new folder under tests called features, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this example test, and I'm just going to move that to the features directory. Now, if we open up that features directory, we have our example test here. We can rename this to be something like view concert listing test, and we can rename the file to also be view concert listing test. And now we can kind of delete what we have here and figure out exactly how we want to get started. So there's a couple different ways that you can create tests with PHP unit and have it detect them. One way is to prefix your tests with the word test, which is totally fine, but the way I prefer to do it is to use an annotation. So I have a little Sublime snippet set up that creates this for me. So using that @test annotation, PHP unit will know that this is a function that it should run as a test, and then any functions that I add to this file that don't have that test annotation, I know they're just like little helper functions or whatever. So to get started, let's just call this test user can view a concert listing. And let's figure out exactly what we need to be doing inside of this test. So there's a couple steps in a traditional test that I'm going to talk about a bit here. There's 3 phases. The first phase is the arrange phase, where we do any setup work needed for our test. The next step is the act phase, where we actually run the code that we want to test the outcome of. And the third phase is the assert phase, where we make assertions about what happened to verify that we got the outcome that we expected. So let's think about what we need to kind of stick in these phases for this test. So a user can view a concert listing. So to me, that implies in our arrange step, we're going to need to create a concert so that there's a concert for the user to view. And I think that's kind of the only thing that's really necessary for this one. In the act phase, we're going to want to view the concert listing, since that's what we're trying to test. And the assert phase, we're going to verify that we can see the concert details. So let's step back and try and kind of fill in these comments with real code. So what does it mean to create a concert? Well, there's a couple ways that we could do this. One way would be to go through the UI, go to the add concert form and fill it out and create the concert as the user. This is going to kind of get us off the path that we wanted though, where we're just trying to build this MVP version of the app that's just focused on the concert listing itself and allowing people to buy tickets. So another approach that you can use to create this concert in the arrange step is what's called direct model access in the RSpec book, which is a great resource to learn about behavior-driven development in Rails. And what direct model access means is that your test code has direct access to the domain code in your application, and you can kind of just create the objects that you need directly instead of having to go through the UI. This has the benefits of making our tests faster and also removing some duplication throughout our tests. So instead of exercising the exact same pages all the time, we just do the fastest thing possible to kind of get set up and then move on to the stuff that we're actually worried about testing. So in order to use the direct model access approach to create a concert, we have to start thinking about some design decisions about how we want to actually make this work. So the approach that I want to take is basically just interacting directly with Laravel's eloquent ORM to create this concert with the fields that we want. So we're going to say something like concert equals concert create, and now we're going to pass an array of any of the stuff that's necessary here. So let's jump back to our mockup and check what fields we need. So we need the event title and I guess maybe the event subtitle. So let's add those in. So we can say maybe title is going to be The Red Chord, which is a great metal band from Boston, Massachusetts. The subtitle was With Animosity and Lethargy, 2 other great metal bands that are no longer around. Now we have the date of the concert, which is December 13th, 2016. So we'll add a date field. And since we want this to be like a real date object probably in our code and have it actually be persisted to the database in a date column. We'll use carbon for this. So we can say carbon parse, and using carbon parse, we can actually pass in like a human readable string, which is nice for this example. So we can say December 13th, 2016. Now the next thing is the time that the doors open, so the time that the concert starts. So we could add a separate field to keep track of that time, but since we have like real date time columns, we could kind of combine this all into just one field. So kind of the concert date time is kind of going to contain the date of the concert as well as the start time of the concert. And I think that's probably a good approach to take. So let's just stick 8 p.m. at the end of this string here, and we'll just keep it all in kind of the concert date. It seems like a reasonable way to go. The next thing that we need is the